All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Heald, and being that we're all, pretty much involved in the tech community, this topic may make you a little squeamish because we're going to talk about the prospect of leaving your phone behind. So, first off, who am I? I am a third-year liberal arts and engineering studies major, and I'm also president of the Cal Poly Linux Users Group. So, with that, let's talk a little bit about the phone, because we don't really talk about it super often, right? It's, ubiquitous these days. It's with us everywhere, but we don't really evaluate the pros and the cons of it, right? So there's some really good things that phones bring. They allow us to keep in touch with each other. We have our camera everywhere to capture life's precious moments. We can keep up to date, and we have all of this information at our fingertips. But we never really look at the flip side of all this. We never really look at how phones lead to addiction, how they disconnect us from each other because we're so focused on them, how it distracts us from the people in our life and our surroundings, and potentially most importantly, how it distracts us from ourselves. Because with our phones, we lose the capacity to have a conversation with ourselves. We lose the capacity for reflection. Think about that for a moment. I hope you were reflecting in that time, because we lose the capacity for solitude. And that's not to confuse solitude with loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the glory of being alone. It's where we learn to trust our imaginations. But you can't get online. You need an environment that has no distractions, where you can be alone with the voice inside of your head. Unfortunately, the way that our society is set up, we don't get this very often, because society is constantly throwing new information at us. It's telling us we need to attend to the latest and greatest, and when we don't get that, we get bored. When we have awkwardness in conversation, we immediately turn to our phones. And that poses a problem, because as Churchill said, when the going gets tough, it's the persistence that counts, but we don't persist through the silence. Instead, we give up on conversation. And that can become an issue because we're so focused, conversation is just a talking, and if it's not there, there's no conversation. But we don't focus on the negative space. We don't focus on how the silence and solitude actually allow for creativity and new ideas to bring the conversation forward. Right? We accept things like texting as a substitute for conversation, yet we lose tone and nonverbal signs. We make our life into postings. We're always trying to talk about positive things because that's what gets you likes on Facebook, right? And where does all of this lead? This leads to anxiety. We've decided that silence, not responding to a text, is a proper response. Even though we can see that people have read our things, even we can see people are active, so why won't they respond? And to compound to this issue, we have apps like Tinder, where we learn that people are dispensable. You can just swipe right on people. We learn that rejection has no consequence because you don't see what saying no to someone does. So what we need is a change in mindset. We need to appreciate not what we get right in life, but what we learn from our failure. We need quality over quantity, and we need to, instead of focusing on our screens and social media, focus on you. It's your life. So moving forward, I challenge all of you to minimize the distractions. Put away the phone when you're talking to people, and leave the phone if you're going out for food, because it's eye contact, not contact with your phone, that activates empathy. But what about tech? Tech can provide starting points. It can tell us, give us conversation starters, and the patterns it exposes through data analysis can lead to questions we can ask about ourselves. The problem is when we get too invested in tech, when we lose that conversation. So the solution is to design tech that lets you go. Design tech that gives you that insight, but then says, get out and experience the real world. Now, in case you thought I was some brilliant social psychologist, actually that's Sherry Turkle. Most of this content has been from her book, Reclaiming Conversation. I highly recommend it. I'm 200 pages in now. There's still 160 to go, so there's a lot more to be learned here. And just kind of a closing thought, it all boils down to love. Love yourself enough to keep that conversation going with you, enough to know yourself. And love others enough to say, I will put down my phone and I will spend a moment with you. And love the moment. because that's what we truly have control of. Thank you.